Hey, welcome to Discovering More. Pastor Ethan and Mark here. We are in the Celebrate the Journey series here, talking about the value of celebrating.
And we talked about journey as a way of thinking about a life of faith. And so it got me thinking about what of our experiences with traveling, physical traveling, how does that kind of speak into our life of faith? If there's any analogies that you can draw.
Well, interestingly enough, I heard this. I heard this recently that memories for children often revolve around vacations, and so because the mundane, the ordinary, we don't always have a way of recalling, but those special moments of journey. So you saying that made me think of that again, and I think of my own childhood, and that's definitely the case. I guess if there's any value to my family having moved way too many times over the last 10 years, maybe my kids will have a lot of memories of childhood. But yeah, I think that's, if you think of the Bible, you got the Psalms of Ascent. And within God's rhythm, he had 3 annual pilgrimages for the people to make, and how that journey was essential or central to the life of faith.
Yeah, and you wonder, going up, for those that traveled basically down the Rift Valley from the area of the Galilee, and they get to Jericho, and then they begin going up, and they would sing the Psalms of Ascent as they would go up from Jericho to Jerusalem, and how that would be. You wonder what they were. You wonder the emotions there. Maybe it was just relief. Although maybe it wasn't relief, because that's quite a climb to go from Jericho to Jerusalem. But they would do it singing. And maybe that was teaching them that even in the midst of struggle, that God was there and that he was blessing them. So what favorite trip, what do you remember from childhood?
My family, every year we'd go to, my dad had a district attorney's conference in the Dells. So every year we'd go to not the Dells, sorry, Door County. So we'd go to Door County every year. My mom and dad loved going to lighthouses. We do a lot of that. But the big trips that we made, we went out west a couple times, and those were just phenomenal trips.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, well, I remember a couple things. Well, one, we went out east. We went to, we had lived my dad was a physician with the military, and he was stationed at Valley Forge Army Hospital. And so we visited stuff, and that's when the first time I went to Gettysburg, the battlefield. And so that sort of captivated me as a kid. So I remember that trip distinctively. And there were certain details that I don't need to share. That also made that trip memorable. But then there was one we went out to Yellowstone.
Yeah.
In fact, that's the only time that I've been to Yellowstone and Grand Tetons. And then I remember on the way back that I wanted to see Devil's Tower.
Okay.
And so, but that involved kind of a little bit of it wasn't, it was a little bit of a detour to get to Devil's Tower. And my younger brother was sick, and I was criticized then, and I was made fun of in succeeding years of having to make that kind of detour. My takeaway from that is, well, first of all, maybe not much sympathy or empathy from my brother, for sure, which I know was the case, but also, sometimes you need to go where you want to go isn't necessarily where that anybody else wants to go along with you. And there's some aspects of the faith life where that's true.
Yeah.
That maybe what's really important to you in terms of theology and practice may not be that significant for somebody else.
Yeah, and to have the inner strength to continue to pursue what God is leading you to as well. I mean, you think about Jesus and his journey to the cross. He brings the disciples with him. He takes the 3 to the garden, and then he goes alone after that. He's like, you guys are all going to leave me, and where I am you cannot follow. And so there is that aspect there. And we can't be waiting for the approval of others on many of the things we have to do. If God is calling us to do it, we have to. And it's like that there's a really weird scene in the book of Judges, right, where God sends a prophet to the northern. Maybe it's not Judges. It might be in like Kings or Chronicles, where God sends a prophet to the nation of Israel from Judah, and he says, don't eat anything while you're there. Just go, make your message, and go home. And then there's another prophet who goes and meets this guy and says, well, the Lord told me you should come to my house. And he listens. And then he dies at the guy's dinner table. And, or no, he always gets eaten by a lion. I'm mixing up some of the details. You'll have to go ask AI about the story,
Yeah.
I'll tell you. But that idea of like, we have to have that inner strength as we go on the journey to say, this is my journey. And even as the people we walk closest with, they're not going to be there for the whole thing. The only one who will be there with us for everything is Jesus.
Right. One of the things I didn't think about at all preparing the sermon, but from what you just said, I just think it's absolutely the case that the whole discussion is to how simple is this whole notion of spiritual growth, spiritual transformation. And my view of it, despite voices that have expressed that, oh yeah, it's just basic, it's straightforward, it's simple. I just don't think it is. Because each of us is different. We all have a different life history. We're at a different point in our journey. We have different sin issues that we need God's liberating power in. We have different goals that we're going after. And all of that kind of really complicates because it's so individual. And there are so many different routes that can be taken, even if we all end up if we have a common destination of ultimately heaven, but Christ-likeness in this life. Even there, though, how we get there is going to depend on who we are. And so we can have kind of categories of things that we think are important, discover, grow, go. But how individuals go after that is, to me, highly individual.
Yeah, it's hard to legislate it. And that's why we can be thankful there's so many churches, because every church is going to have a different angle, a different take, a different priority, and it's funny because I helped coach at Regis, and they have a summer lifting program, and Monday was the first day of it, and the head coach, he's there with the 7th graders and the 8th graders, he's there with everyone, and he says, you've taken the first step on your journey. I was like, journey language, there we are. But he said, you've taken, this is the hardest step, the first step. And at some level, like going through the motions, going through the steps that he's laid out, they'll be excellent football players by the end. But also, I don't think excellent football players is the ultimate goal of even the football program. It's to make these boys into men, right? So as we think about the Christian faith, it's our ultimate goal isn't to build church attenders. People are going to show up on Sunday and go to the events and whatever. Our goal,
do come though.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. If you skip enough morning lifts, if you skip the practices, you aren't going to be there. But the ultimate goal through the worship life, through the small groups, through the Bible reading, through the prayers, through the mission events, all that is to become like you said, to become like Christ, which means in Philippians 3, to share in his sufferings, so we may one day share in the glory of the resurrection.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else from Journey popped into, from vacation travel. You mentioned the fact that, and that's true for me as a kid too, I remember those trips. Mm-hmm. And a lot of other stuff just gets washed out.
Oh yeah.
From memory. And I'm thinking though that we need, I think that all of us need some special faith events.
Yeah.
That we remember and we can celebrate, but also that we not only just carried some memories, but it changed us in certain ways. And so whether that is a retreat or, going on a pilgrimage, like going to Israel was really impactful. Yeah. I still have a few spots for Greece, by the way, shameless promotion. But I think those events change you. And that we need to build those, and obviously we want to make worship. We want to make those meaningful events, but those are more like those are day to day. That's day to day Christianity.
Well, it's funny because how many of your own sermons do you even remember? Not to mention those that other people have preached. There's something going on. Like you shouldn't skip the sermon.
Right.
But like you said, for me, Vacation Bible School, which we have coming up this coming week. As a kid, getting to lead other children and being entrusted with that, it's just a small thing, but you take that first step of like, okay, I can talk about the Bible, I can do some acting, I can do whatever it is, and then you progress from there, just giving people the opportunities as we get to adults. Yeah, retreats, lead that Bible study, go on that trip to Greece. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think about those vacations, and and my kids too. They talk about vacations that we did, and
Yeah, so maybe one takeaway here in the Northwoods, we really have like 8 weeks of summer. It's so short. But what are you going to do this summer? 8 weeks. What spiritual retreat are you going to take? How are you going to make a spiritual memory this summer? It could be a day away. It could be a day without your phone. It could be part of your week-long vacation to wherever you're going. But how can you turn that special event into a spiritual formation moment?
yeah, that's a great final point.
Yes. Well, thanks for joining us for Discovering More. And
One other quick word before Kristen shuts this off, and that is, I always want to say thanks for all of you who came out on Sunday, whether it was for the open house or dinner or both. It was a wonderful time, and Lynette and I just want to say thanks.
it was a special time. Yeah. I hope. I just felt the love and the passion of this place, and I was only a bystander. So yeah.
Well, you were involved too, so
But
blessings.